1. Dark again at 5:15. The branches score the gray sky like fingers. From fear we denigrate surrender, death and change, the frozen nape of attendant places, reaching to touch the insubstantial edges, the frozen pond of repetition, the giving over of beauty to beauty. In any case, surrender looms between sadness and anger. Blaming God for the anesthetization of death and change, time to order beauty differently instead of worshiping that one tree, for example, while in Australia over 500 million beings burn, must be seen and acknowledged. Believe in all things with the force of your possible desire. Exhausted by varieties of sinew and flesh. Yet when I am thinking, time and space do not exist, or rather, speech leads me down this path. And with what dumb force that silhouetted tree, a penumbra, is that the word? A boy who is addicted to non-addictive weed. Who can scour these corners, these feelings, these, what is the word? Political men and women, moving in realms of truth and untruth, which call us to reappear even as we dissolve into culpability and concern beyond the single horizon, beyond her steady breath, beyond fear and worry and anxiety, probably not a true faith. 2. How is it that faith finds us? I enter a particularly snowy path. You appear in disappearance behind your ex-husband's house. The time returns to its rhythms, never believing with the rest of them that its moments exist abstractly. It calls for us to reappear even as we dissolve. Forgive me for not understanding, for surrendering before the battle had rushed in to fill the vacuum. A friend who can't stop gambling. It is in this way that we can speak of the soul as a renunciant, ego and distance, probably cheap grace, afterwards sleep, afterwards materiality, even in its most ideal. Useless in most parts, cannot be said to belong to this single horizon, beyond her steady breath, beyond possible favorable conditions. 3. Horizontal spacing of sounds, systems, attitudes, sources, and radical techniques. How many times have you saved me from myself, turned me back towards music, developed a new concept, a doubling of consciousness towards the act of distance, a new attitude toward contraries, puts consideration to the side, puts all distance to the side, the full weight of your desire, yours by right, sometimes into sadness. Experience was written after the muddy whites of the eye. These attendant places, opposed to all systems, the sky a score for atmospheric song, consciousness a way that we can speak about the soul, scattered bits of song. When we are really thinking, time and space do not exist, roughly at the point of so-called terror. If peace is even, faith is even possible, we will be ferocious. at the city's edge. This I must surrender, infant joy and sorrow, each in tune with each. 4. The day contracts and coincides with death and change and silence. What you hear in the silence of your walk is unremarkable. Sources opposed to systems, the interrelational aspect. You hear it when you fall, the green and candy-colored edge saturating space towards the act of listening, the closing of distance at the end of right or wrong or better or worse, different perspectives on the same phenomena. Consciousness being conscious of itself, or ferocity and music, or in memory of her steady breath. Illuminated rooms attuned to someone else, to touch the insubstantial leading down to distance, address the trope of parturition, and always into beauty, sometimes into sadness. Scouring is always incomplete. These attendant edges, attitudes of different specifics. Against the odds, against the happiness that is yours by right, beyond this single steady breath, innocence, after experience, back towards death and change and music. What I know seems useless, opposed to progression. How is faith even possible? Running lights or brake lights or muddy whites of snow, slipping into boxes, systems and techniques, contradicting hopefulness, machines of various kinds, girls and boys, the time returned as distance, edge of steady breath, fear and force and justice, the edge of stipulated faith. Desire leads to years of distressing testimony, written at the edge of consciousness, as though actually on fire, as though the same phenomena rushed in to fill a vacuum, as though it were an act of violence. The practice of sending children into the world to force them into saturated spaces, to dictate and to apprehend loss, not love, to bind a child and force her into rooms attuned to someone else's song.